Hey guys, my name is Tim. I'm the master mechanic at Zeiten BMW Mobile Services, and today we have 2009 BMW 328i right here. And what we're gonna do is replace oil filter housing gasket, one of the most common leaks on the BMW with the 3 Series, 328s, 128 as well, and all of the above, like where you have this spot right there. So the leak, usually you can see it coming right around here. It's pretty clean now, but if we start the car, you'll see it right away. The other spot where you can see the leak, that would be right there. You see it's all oily in there. And of course, right over there, you see it's this is where the oil filter housing gasket sits. This is where it usually leaks, and we're gonna start the car right now to show you the direct leak that you can see sometimes. So what this leak is capable of doing, the damage it can cause. First of all, it leaks directly down to the tensioner right there and the belt, so the belt can become slippery and snap off. The worst case scenario is the belt catching there, like, and getting shredded, and it can get sucked into the engine, blocking the oil pump intake tube. When it does that, you will have the low oil pressure warning, and you basically cannot drive the car, that's for sure. Other thing, when this happens, the shredded belt gets sucked into the engine. It can damage the front crankshaft seal, and that will have to be replaced as well. And of course, well, without the belt, the car will die pretty soon. The battery will die first. It can cause overheating, it can cause a lot of different issues. The next damaging point, that would be the oil from the oil filter housing gasket leaks down this way, down the engine, and on the way out there are the Vanna solenoids, those two right there. And when you damage those, all the hell can break loose. Those solenoids control the Vannas, and the car can act really strange, so it's best to avoid that. So let's get to it. First thing I want to do is to open the oil filter, just to drain all the oil that is right there down to the engine. If you're not opening it and you remove the oil filter housing, there's gonna be a lot of oil coming out, and I want to minimize that. So we're gonna just open the cap. I'll let it sit like that, but definitely put a towel in here, in this area right there, because when you remove the cap completely, some will be spilled, that's for sure. As you can see, oil is already coming out. So I'll just leave it like that for now, and we'll continue taking all the plastic off to get access to this gasket. The next thing we're gonna do is remove one of the hardest bolts on the oil filter housing. There is only 3 bolts in there, and this is this one right there. It's facing towards this hose. It's a coolant hose from cylinder head to the thermostat, and on most cars, like we just replaced this one, but I'm still not gonna remove it. On most cars, when you remove this hose, it just breaks, so you'll have to replace that. I'll show you how to remove this bolt without touching this hose. Before we remove or even loosen any bolts of the oil filter housing, what I want to do is open a suspension tank and suck out all the coolant that is in there. It's approximately should be 2 liters, and in order to get the full amount, you'll need to open this screw right there as well. And I'm going to be using this simple pump. Just put it in there and pump it out. This will allow us to prevent the massive spill of the coolant, because right there's a coolant passage through this hose to the hole in the head, I would say. So coolant goes in there. If you remove it, a lot of coolant comes out. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to clean it out. So when all the coolant removed, not all, just 2 liters out of the expansion tank, now we're ready to loosen this bottom bolt. I'm going to be using the 8mm wrench like that with the 12 points in the end. I also have this E10 wrench that fits perfectly right there, and if you're using this one, I mean, I ordered it specifically for this job. We usually use this one to loosen it, and then this one to just turn it out of the way. This is easier, this is more available, and I just want to point out like the way to remove this bolt, and in order to not to strip it with this wrench, you'll need to put it right there very tight, so it's and do not allow it to move out of this bolt at all. So you just better hold it with your hand or something like that. You can use this position or this position, doesn't matter. You can also try, because this bolt can be really hard, going in here. So this will allow you to move a little bit more and put some socket on top of the wrench, but definitely always lock it so it doesn't move at all. So this bolt is loosened, and now you can take it off. It's gonna take some time most likely, but this is how you do it till the point where you can just spin it with your hands, usually not at this point but way further, like when it's usually gets really stuck. It's also usually very tight, so be very careful with this wrench. If you can get the E10 wrench, that would be the best. Also, the worst case scenario, you'll have to remove these 2 10mm bolts and remove this hose. The coolant is already out, but the worst thing that can happen, you can break the hose and you'll have to replace that. Now I'm gonna remove the bolts and nuts from the intake manifold. It's 4 11mm bolts and 3 11mm nuts. This will allow us to just lift the intake manifold a little bit and gain the access to this last bolt of the oil filter housing. Doing that, like now, we can just simply put the extension and the E10 socket right there. Just take it off. And this is the last one. When you loosen those bolts, just expect some of the oil to come out. I already cleaned the place where the oil filter sits, so as much as I could right there, so it's fully clean. But still, there's some oil will be coming out, and one of the points where you want to put the towel in would be right there, covering the belt and the tensioner.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can either use a magnet to get this last bolt out, or you can reach it with the hands basically, but the other thing you can do is just lift it, and there you go. As you can see, the oil is coming out. Now we can remove the gasket. You want to get it out in one piece. Just make sure nothing is left in there, and clean all the passages right there with a shop towel or anything you can. Now we're ready to install the new oil filter housing gasket. I'm using L-ring gasket. Victor Rhines is always a good choice for this gasket. So either one will work. Just don't use cheap ones. They will start leaking pretty soon, like way before they should. It goes in only one way. You can't mess it up. Just make sure it seats properly everywhere. And now I'm gonna take this last bolt, put it in, and put the housing in place, and now taking this small one and putting it right there. And the last one is 3. There. Now we can put this one in thread as well. The key point would be tightening all 3 bolts kind of at the same time. So what I usually do is, starting with this one right there, as long as it's the hardest one, this one, then the opposite side, and the center one. There's enough here. I can do this side. And it stops. Basically all the bolts are in place completely. Now we can make them tight. that's all. After this, we're just gonna push the intake manifold back in place and put the bolts in. First I would start with the center nut, the third one. Just put it a little bit, then the last one. And we'll go right here. That's all, just torque this back and you're good. Now the only thing left to do is just to put the filter back. If you have worn out O-ring right here, replace that. It comes with every oil filter. Might be a good idea. It's also the other O-ring right there, the small one, also comes with every oil filter, so even if you do the oil change, like replace both O-rings, it's necessary. And for this job, it might be necessary. We just changed the oil on this car, so it's not necessary with us. I'll just put it back in. Now we just need to plug all the sensors in and then install the air filter box and all the plastic back in place, but basically this job is done. Now we can fill up the expansion tank. Just keep the screw out, and whatever we took pumped out of it, we'll put it back. After that, we'll put this bleeding screw back in place, and what I recommend you to do after that is to initialize bleeding procedure with the screw closed but with the expansion tank cap open. How to do it? It's pretty straightforward. You just put the key in, push the button, don't start the car, and turn the heater all the way to the max. The heat, the fan can be at the lowest, but make sure the heater basically works. And after that, you just step on the gas pedal for 10 seconds. It will start the water pump to pump the fluid, and I would say just wait for approximately 6 minutes. The whole procedure is 12 minutes. What I usually do is wait for 6 minutes and then start the car with the cap off, another 5-6 minutes, and then close the cap, and that's all. Okay guys, this is it for the oil filter housing gasket replacement. I hope this video will help you to prevent this dangerous leak, I would say, and thank you guys for watching. See you next time.